Welcome to another edition of Tuscaloosa Talks. Today I am with the man that's in charge of the lakes of the city of Tuscaloosa, Lake Tuscaloosa, Harris Lake, and Lake Nickel. Today we're at Harris Lake, and I don't know if there's a better view in the city, and a pavilion that was built by our lakes team out here, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in just a second. But I want to introduce you to James LaFoy. James, thank you for joining us today.
Yes, sir.
Why don't you tell people a little bit about your history with the city, and then your how you ended up in the Lakes Division, and what you do every day?
Well, I hired into the Lake Division. I've been here 22 years. I started off as a maintenance worker, then a supervisor, then I inspected some, and now I'm the manager. And I spent my whole career up here at the lakes.
So to you, I assume the lakes are just kind of in your blood.
They are. I've been here so long, I'm kind of stuck with them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They come out wrong.
Well, I understand that. No, you know, James, you and I were talking off air. This is not something that you do every day, but yet when people think of the city and one of its greatest assets, Lake Tuscaloosa, has to come to mind. But let's talk a little bit about the history of our lakes here. Start out with Harris Lake, where we are today. Tell the people at home a little bit about the history of this place.
Okay, so the city took over water in 1911, and they was treating the typhoid outbreak come out, and they had to start putting chlorine in the water. So the river becomes so polluted, the water tasted bad. So they needed clean water. Plus, they was putting the paper mill in right above the waterworks. Mm-hmm. So in 1928, they come up here and found Yellow Creek, and in 1929, they backed Harris Lake up, and that's how we got our first lake.
And so it holds about 1 billion gallons of water, roughly?
That's correct. That's what it was to start with, but then in 1945, they added 5 foot to the level of the spillway to get more. The city chased water for years before we got Lake Tuscaloosa, trying to get more and more water.
So this lake, though, is no longer used for drinking water out of our plants.
That's correct. We got one plant that runs off of it now.
Yeah. So going over to Lake Nickel, tell us a little bit about the history of Lake Nickel.
Okay, so Harris couldn't keep up with water, so they built Lake Nickel in 1954, and they hadn't built that long. They had to add 5 foot to Lake Nickel's spillway to keep the city was using like 22 million gallons a day, and they had to keep adding on to that to keep up with the water usage.
So that was built in the 1950s.
Right.
And then soon thereafter, the city was chasing water again in the 60s.
That's right.
Because here comes Lake Tuscaloosa. Tell people a little bit about the history of Lake Tuscaloosa.
Okay, so they finally did it right. In 1970, Lake Tuscaloosa filled up, and it holds 44 billion gallons of water. I can give them 200 to 350 million gallons a day if they want it. We usually, in the summertime, 40 million, something like that's all we use. But we've got plenty of water, good water and clean water.
So Lake Tuscaloosa, what's the thing when you're out on the lake? What's something you just enjoy seeing?
I guess kids and stuff out like fishing and stuff like that. The next generation, people having fun. You know, I tell a story all the time. When I was over on Nickel, I was up there one day checking some stuff out, heard a lady and kids screaming, and I thought something was wrong. So I run down there, and this kid, he's out there with his mom. He caught his first fish. And it was something small like that, but makes you feel good when they're somewhere you take care of, and something like that gets them that excited.
Now, you know, for many years, these lakes have been a hidden treasure, especially Lake Harris and Harris Lake and Lake Nickel. Talk about this pavilion here. This is something that you and your team did, that you did on your own. It's just extraordinary. Talk a little bit about it.
This was the old boathouse when the lake level was up 5 more foot, and we had to drop the level back down because of some of the old timbers had rotted where they had added on to the spillway. And so this was going to tear this down and just throw it away. And I got to looking at it and figured the roof was good and we could fill in where the boat was, and we just filled it in and made a nice pavilion out of it.
Well, I know that it's going to be hundreds of people on a warm weekend come out here, and this will be a place that they can enjoy. What does the city owning its own lakes truly mean to its future? Very few cities across the country own this amount of water. What does that mean for us?
It means we can control it better and the uses of it, and some of the stuff around it, like Harris and Nickel, we own all the land all the way around it, so we can control what happens to it, sedimentation, tree cutting and stuff. And then like on Lake Tuscaloosa, we own up to an elevation of 230, which gives us 7 foot higher than normal pool. We can control what goes on in that area.
You know, there are states that are going to legal war over who has control of what water, and that's one benefit, at least for the next 100, 200 years, the people of this community won't have to worry about. Let's talk about Lake Nickel and Lake Harris, because we've got an upcoming public master plan meeting to talk about. In 2010, the city of Tuscaloosa decided to preserve the 2,000 plus acres around Lake Harris and Lake Nickel. This decision means that there can never be any development that encroaches these lakes. They are in the public's hands forever. And part of the goal was to expand the recreation opportunities. It's hard to find Harris Lake. It can be hard to find Lake Nickel. And our goal over the next 10 years is to expand the recreational use. What would you like to see as lakes manager in terms of more recreational opportunities for the people of Tuscaloosa?
I like to see stuff like we're fixing to add some kayak launching piers and stuff like that, because that's a big thing now. Just make it easier for people to get in and out. Restrooms. I like to see restrooms develop for people. More of a park atmosphere. Me and my wife like to travel, and we go to these parks, and you see all these nice restrooms and picnic tables and all that. I'd like to bring that up here to the city.
Okay. So if you're interested, and this is more to the public, the city is going to be having a master plan presentation. It's your chance to get involved early on in the master plan presentation for Lake Harris, Lake Nickel. It's going to be August 22nd, which is a Monday, at the Phelps Center from 3 o'clock to 6 p.m. It's come and go. We would love to get your input. And if you can't make the meeting, you can go to elevatetuscaloosa.com/lakes survey. That's lakes, plural, lakes survey.com. We really would love your input, because one of the great things about Elevate Tuscaloosa is starting next year, we're going to begin making annual investments to really take Lake Nickel and Harris Lake to the next level. What are the challenges in front of us for our lakes? What are the threats to these amazing lakes we have here in Tuscaloosa?
To me, it's sedimentation. As soon as you build a lake, it starts filling up with sedimentation and runoff. And we've got problems like Lake Tuscaloosa is 50 years old. All the back of the sloughs and all are starting to fill in. Coal mining here in Harris. The sedimentation is one of my biggest fears.
You know, the city opposed the coal mining
Right.
and came up short on that one. For years, the city has tried to pass, it's a very boring term. It certainly isn't going to excite the public, but it's called extraterritorial zoning. Because one of the things about Lake Tuscaloosa is that the majority of the property that surrounds it is not in the city's hands, and the city doesn't have the ability to zone it or implement land controls. And unfortunately, that means we see a lot of sedimentation into the lake. But if somebody sees sedimentation taking place, maybe a site where construction is taking place and there's a lot of dirt coming into the lake, who can they call at the Lakes Division, and can you give a number or email address?
The easiest way is to call 311 and my email, or you can email me. My email is jlafoy@tuscaloosa.com.
Okay, so jlafoy@tuscaloosa.com. James, as we close up, what would you, 10 years from now, 15 years from now, whenever, you don't need to be retiring anytime soon, that's why I said 10 or 15 years from now, what do you hope is your greatest professional accomplishment when it comes to these lakes?
Preservation of the lakes. I'd like to save it for the next generation.
Amen. Well, this has been another edition of Tuscaloosa Talks. These lakes are one of Tuscaloosa's greatest assets, and the person out here protecting it, leading that charge, is James LaFoy. James, thank you for being with us. Thank you for tuning in to Tuscaloosa Talks. Hope you will come out August 22nd from 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. at the Phelps Center. Be part of the master planning process. Talk to you soon.